This is KSL Sunday Edition with Boyd Matheson.
Welcome to Sunday Edition. I am Boyd Matheson. Each Sunday we attempt to divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense. We have conversations with great thinkers, great leaders, and great people making a difference. We talk politics so we can discuss society, and we explore society so we can discuss principles and the people in America who actually live them. We bring the best and brightest to Utah, and we send the Utah model to our nation's capital and beyond. Well, during a very interesting and distinctly divisive time of protests on college campuses, graduation ceremonies are also happening across the country. Never has the need been so great to value diversity, not just tolerate it, to see each other deep and be deeply seen, and above all, to recognize that healthy pluralism is paramount to a healthy society and a constitutional republic. Eboo Patel is the founder and president of Interfaith America, the author of We Need to Build, Fill Notes for a Diverse Democracy, and the host of the podcast Interfaith America with Eboo Patel. He's also an impact scholar at the University of Utah and was a commencement speaker at the university this week. Eboo is a leading voice for being radically curious with those we disagree with, building bridges across our differences, and valuing the diversity and the divinity within our fellow travelers and with each other. And Eboo, welcome to the program. Welcome to Sunday Edition.
Boyd, that was a great introduction, and it's wonderful to be with you in person.
Fantastic. As an impact scholar at the University of Utah, on campus this week for commencement, clearly there's been a lot of focus on college campuses these days. And you are one who says, hey, we can do this differently. We can have big-time disagreements in this country. We just have to do it a little bit better.
That's right. Well, at Interfaith America, the organization I lead, we like to say diversity is a treasure, cooperation is better than division, identity is a source of pride, and faith is a bridge. And I have to tell you, I really am not sure there's any place in the country that does that better than Utah and Salt Lake City. And up there at the University of Utah in those beautiful mountains, they are making an excellent attempt, and I've been proud to be an impact scholar this year.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch those conversations, and Utah really has been kind of the center of kindness and this ability to have the different kinds of conversations. As you were up there this week, of course, for commencement, an address there, what was the real message you wanted to make sure that those graduating students came away with?
Well, the message is that we all have to be leaders for diverse democracy in our divided times. And that can sound really abstract. And I really hope that those graduates spend some time reading the important abstractions and ideals of diverse democracy, from the Declaration of Independence all the way to the great Harvard scholar Daniel Allen. But leading in a diverse democracy can also be really concrete. And so I titled my commencement address, Host a Potluck, because I really think that the potluck is the perfect expression of diverse democracy. You're bringing people from a variety of identities and backgrounds together, and you're expecting them to make a contribution, to bring their best dish, and you want those best dishes to be in enriching combination, and you want the people around to be in wonderful and engaged conversation. If you can host a potluck with a diverse group of people who have divergent ideologies and create that kind of space where people can engage each other in a proactive and positive way, you are a leader in a diverse democracy.
Yeah, and who would have thought that it was all the potluck was the key to democracy in a constitutional republic?
It absolutely is, and I'll tell you one of the other reasons for that. No governor, even one as wonderful as Spencer Cox, no governor, no general, no president can command you to potluck. The people do it themselves. It is the ultimate form that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. So let's get out there and invite neighbors, friends, people from your own faith, people from other faiths, people you walk by at the train station. Let's invite them to a potluck, invite them to bring their best dish, and make sure we're creating a space where those dishes can be in creative combination. That is the American tradition.
Yeah, and it is that bringing together of all that diversity that really comes into something special. You also talked about something that I think is really underappreciated, and that is the power of the invitation. It's very Tocquevillian, but it is very powerful, and I think most of us don't think we have that ability to convene or to extend the invitation.
Well, we absolutely do. I mean, we know that the way that people start volunteering is when somebody else invites them to do that. the way people get involved in a political campaign is when somebody else invites them to do that. And that's why the host of a potluck is such an important leadership role, because that person is standing up and saying, I want to open up my home or my space to bring you in, and I believe in you enough to know that you are a contributor, you have a dish to bring.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the essence of democracy, believing that everybody is a contributor. Now, let's recognize that lots of people face barriers to their contribution, right? Racism is a barrier, and it's very real. Sexism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, homophobia, these are all barriers to people's contributions, but they don't define people. Islamophobia is a barrier to the contribution of people like my family who are Muslim, but Islamophobia is not what makes Muslims. Islam is what makes Muslims. Being inspired by your tradition is what makes you who you are, right? We need to reduce the barriers without confusing the barriers for people's actual identities.
I love that. And as I went through your address, that idea that the barrier doesn't define, but it does make it harder to contribute. And we have so many, I think all of us have that responsibility to create space, remove the barriers, and then extend that invitation so that everybody can bring their best self, their authentic self, into a great potluck or into a fantastic community discussion.
That's exactly right. And you know, one of the things about a potluck is as much as you might love your own community, you don't want just your own quote-unquote community to show up, right? I've learned in Utah that your famous dish is funeral potatoes. I am sure they are wonderful, but if you have 25 people over to your potluck, you don't want 25 versions of funeral potatoes. You should invite my family. We might bring biryani. You should invite some folks from the Middle East. They might bring wonderful spicy dips. You might invite some folks from Eastern Europe. They might bring some amazing crusty bread. And the American story is when that amazing crusty bread from Eastern Europe meets those amazing spicy dips from the Middle East, and people say, I've never tasted anything like that before. That's how we get jazz, Boyd. That's how we get rock and roll. That's how we get the blues. That's how we get hip hop, right? It's that creative combination.
I love that. Well, we're going to do, Einstein said it wasn't that he was any smarter, he was just willing to stay with the conversation a little bit longer, and that's exactly what we're going to do on Sunday Edition. We're going to stay with the conversation with Eboo Patel after this break. We'll get into some of the important parts of building bridges, how we go about that important work. Coming up next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. We're staying with the question with Eboo Patel, and it's so interesting with all of the protests and a lot of the things that are going on, the divisive stuff that happens in our politics, and now it's happening on many college campuses. I always say that opposition is uncomplicated and deconstruction is undemanding. And yet so often, we were talking during the break of how we romanticize and celebrate all the wrong behavior and all the wrong things that prevent us from getting to the better conversations and the better connection in our communities.
Absolutely. So those are good lines, but I think I might take those. I will cite you properly. But, you know, the great Jesuit philosopher, John Courtney Murray, says that civilization is living and talking together. That's what civilization is. And that's one of the reasons I love college campuses, because on college campuses, you're supposed to live and talk together, and you're part of this ongoing conversation that's really taken place over millennia, right? That's why we read ancient texts and discuss them. I will say that people who are peaceful protesters not only have the right to protest, and I support that, but I really despise war. And I think it's really important to say no to war. And I appreciate these young people making me feel a little less helpless by saying no to war. And having said that, when you do things outside of saying no to war, when you insult other people, when you prevent cancer researchers from getting to their laboratory, when you prevent people from getting to airports so that they might be able to get to memorial services for family members, as I had to get to recently out in San Francisco, I think we should take a second look, right? So let's say no to war. Let's encourage people to make peace and make truce. I appreciate that, right? And let's make sure that the good things in our society can continue, right? That people can work together in laboratories, that people can play together in little leagues, that people can study together in college classrooms. Let's not disrupt the bad things, and let's celebrate the peacemakers. Who's out there building bridges? Who's out there making peace? Let's celebrate those folks.
And a lot of your work at Interfaith America has been centered in building just those kinds of bridges where we really go beyond. Sometimes we have that intolerant tolerance. We're tolerant for those that we agree with, or we celebrate the diversity of those that we like, but we don't really get to that more important conversation that sometimes requires a bit of humility, some radical curiosity, and a whole lot of listening.
Absolutely. Well, this is what I love about Monica Guzman's book. I never thought of it that way. I recently did a piece about Monica for Deseret News, where I'm proud to be an op-ed columnist. And what Monica says is, find people that you love and that you disagree with.
Yeah.
And enter that conversation not only with love but with curiosity, right? That you love those people. They're your parents. They're your brothers and sisters. They're your aunts and uncles. They're your children, right? That should be untouched, that love, right?
Yeah.
And you enter and you say, I know you're a good person. Let me find out more about the area in which we disagree. And take pride in learning new things.
Yeah. Yeah.
To say to yourself, I never thought of it that way.
But that's the best line of all lines.
That's the best line. That's why you're in college.
Yeah.
Right? That's why you're engaged in a conversation, right? Like if you're entering college in the fall already knowing everything, my strong suggestion is you don't pay the University of Utah $25,000 a year or Columbia $95,000 a year to go shout things that you already know to people that you disagree with.
Yeah.
Right? You go to college to learn new things, to talk to people you might never have met before, to encounter diverse identities and divergent ideologies. Lean into that. Now, you should have some parameters. Like, I'm not buying a brownie from the Nazi bake sale. You should have some parameters. But 99% of my fellow citizens and other people who are present in this country, they're not Nazis.
That's right.
They're people I can learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you take that radical curiosity, that ability to say, well, I wonder why she thinks that's a good idea, or I wonder why he believes that's a good solution to that. I think that often leads us to another kind of radical moment, and that's that radical empathy and radical compassion for one another. And just describe for us quickly as we come down the home stretch in terms of your work at Interfaith America, in terms of what kinds of things are you doing? How are you fostering those kinds of conversations?
Yeah, well, I'm really proud of the organization I lead, Interfaith America, particularly in this moment when there's so much conflict on college campuses. And again, I want to say that I support the right of peaceful protesters to have their say, even things I disagree with. Right? I learn from that. And I especially support people saying no to war.
Yeah.
I think war is detestable and we should say no to it. And that is not taking a side. That is saying bring people to the table and make peace, make every effort to do that, right? And my organization, Interfaith America, is part of building bridges on college campuses. We are working with students to help them become bridge builders, to look at their identities as sources of pride and their faith as sources of bridge building. We work with campus administrators to reset the default mode on campuses to cooperation. And I have to say, part of the challenge here is that in some cases, the default mode in higher education has been set to confrontation. We romanticize the confrontation, right? What we should be doing is centering cooperation. We should say that the norm on this campus is that you will have lab partners and you will have roommates and you will be in seminars with people from diverse identities and divergent ideologies. That is the reason we exist as a college campus. And we are trying to create a space where you can learn from one another and where you can cooperate together. And Boyd, I'll tell you something. You have some great lines. Here's a great line I will leave you with. The only way to have a diverse democracy is to be able to disagree on some fundamental things and to work together on other fundamental things. And I think that's not just a civic necessity. I think that is a sacred endeavor, and we should cherish what we have in America, and we should strengthen it.
Yeah, that is a sacred endeavor that we all need to be engaged in across the political spectrum, across the faith spectrum, really across all of our communities. Eboo Patel, thanks so much for joining us on Sunday Edition today. It was great to have you in the state of Utah. Impact Scholar at the University of Utah, commencement speaker, and founder and president of Interfaith America. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Boyd, thanks for having me.
That was a crucial conversation, and we're going to stay with that here on Sunday Edition. So many important things for us to get to in terms of our democracy, our constitutional republic. How do we reclaim that? How do we take an active role in terms of what we do in our community, how we influence those who are making laws in Congress, and how we can build a better future together? We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. As we've been discussing today, in the loud and often angry polarization and cynicism of our time, it's easy for pessimism to prevail and for citizens to disengage from democracy, from civic engagement, and even from civil society. Our next guest is focused on helping citizens not just engage, but become part of the kind of transformational advocacy our nation desperately needs. Sam Daley-Harris is a social entrepreneur, founder of Results and Results Education Fund, co-founder of the Microcredit Summit campaign, and most important, author of Reclaiming Our Democracy. And Sam joins us today. Sam, welcome to Sunday Edition.
Great to be with you.
As you look at this important work, it's so easy for people to feel so discouraged about democracy and the questions of what can I do, how can I engage, can I really make a difference? You take that full on and tell us about what we should be thinking when it comes to leaning in and engaging in this kind of transformational discussion.
Yeah, I actually did this national radio interview, and the host really came with the cynical, discouraged question. And the first thing I said was, Apollo astronaut Rusty Schweickart said, "We aren't passengers on Spaceship Earth, we're the crew." Well, are we? And if we're crew, how does crew operate? And the second thing I said was, climate activists and futurists Alex Steffen said, in fact, these days, cynicism is obedience. Well, yeah, if I'm cynical, I'm obedient to the way things are. I'm not going to do anything. Why would I if nothing I do makes a difference? So we need to start with a different mindset and then find an organization that offers transformational advocacy.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get into. A lot of organizations do very much transactional work. It's making that donation, it's getting on a mailing list, it's receiving a newsletter. And while all those things are good and an important part of the process, you said there's a better way to actually get at making a difference.
Yes, and most people know transactional advocacy, sign the petition, transaction complete. But with transformational advocacy, you're trained, encouraged, and succeed at doing things as an advocate you never thought you could do, like meet with a member of Congress and bring them on board to your issue. And when you do that, you see yourself in a new light. Basically, a transformation occurs, and it lights you up, really, and you want to engage rather than pull back and sit on the couch.
Yeah, and you've had a long history of helping people get into that transformational space on a wide range of issues, which is fantastic. And so as you look at that and as you train people, one of the things that I love, you use a model that I first heard from a great choir director who has all of these wonderful, talented singers. And I asked him, what is the most important skill set you need to have to be successful in this choir? And he said, I always tell them you have to listen louder than you sing. And I always thought that was such a powerful way to frame it. You'd look at it similarly. We often think of advocacy as going in and making the case, pounding the table or giving the brilliant speech. You say it's actually listening that's the most important skill.
That's right. And my training originally is in music, so I might have that choir director in me. But when you're meeting with a member of Congress or other key official who opposes your issue, I have volunteers ask 3 questions. 1, we know you don't support this initiative. What would it take to change your mind? And you're listening for assignments. What would it take to change your mind? 2, could you say more about that? 3, why do you think that is? So it's really a deep listening exercise and really a relationship building exercise so that you can form a deep relationship with those key decision makers.
Yeah, it's such a powerful way to go into those so often. Having sat in many of those meetings in Washington, D.C., watching some of the advocates come in and give a speech or deliver a sermon, and nothing changes, nothing happens. But those that have those deep listening skills, that is where the transformation really occurs. Give us some examples of some of the things that you've been doing, some of the successes you've seen, where maybe you've taken someone or some bill or so on and really moved it into a space where there could be some forward movement.
Let me briefly describe a personal success and an organization mission success. I always tell about this amazing woman, Maxine Thomas, who said, I had a heart for service, but I was clueless about advocacy, especially political advocacy. And after a full day of first ever meetings with her elected officials, she said, I was euphoric. I was on this high and felt I was part of something transformational. And so that's like the personal level. Results, the advocacy organization has lobbied every year for 40 years on child survival, when 40 years ago, UNICEF, the UN Children's Fund, was reporting 40,000 child deaths a day from preventable things like measles coupled with malnutrition. Lobbying every year, the latest word from UNICEF is that the 40,000 child deaths a day has dropped by 66% to 13,800 a day. It's still scandalously high, but imagine being part of an initiative that's had that kind of impact on our world and on families in our world.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing, and that is the whole key to all of this. And Sam, just in our last 30 seconds here, give us a quick hit. What's the one thing that all of us, everyone says, oh, I can't make a difference, I can't do it. Just give us one thing that we ought to do today to become part of this reclaiming of democracy.
Well, honestly, finding an organization like Results or Citizens Climate Lobby or the Quaker Lobby, FCNL, who do these transformational advocacy things would be the smartest thing anyone could do. And take a look at Reclaiming Our Democracy, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, Reclaiming Our Democracy, that's a must read. It is the field guide for sure for all of us to actually get engaged in the process where we can actually make a difference. You also had a great piece in Philanthropy at philanthropy.com talking about how organizations need to make sure they're creating that transformational space, not just the transactional space. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. Great perspective. This is important work because all of us can lean in. All of us can stand up and speak out and do that deep listening that Sam described to actually make a difference in our community, in our state, and in the nation. Sam, thanks again for joining us today.
It's been an honor.
All right, that's Sam Daley-Harris. A great perspective, as always. Again, his book, Reclaiming Our Democracy, an important read for all of us, the real feed guide there. Well, that wraps it up for us today on Sunday Edition. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference. Music and the Spoken Word is next.